the disappearance of meaning, and the discovery of being. There comes a moment in some lives when a peculiar terror takes hold. Not the terror of specific catastrophe, but something more insidious. You wake up one day and realize that the narratives you've been telling yourself about your life, the stories that gave everything its shape and significance, have quietly dissolved. The career path that was supposed to lead somewhere, you can no longer remember where or why it mattered. The relationships you've been cultivating, you've forgotten what you were cultivating them for. The goals you set, the dreams you nurtured, the identity you've been building, all of it suddenly appears as arbitrary as a game whose rules you've been following without ever understanding why you replaying. And the question that haunts you, the question that wakes you at 3 in the morning, is not "what should I do?" but something far more disturbing. Why should I do anything at all? Not in a suicidal way, necessarily, but in a genuinely philosophical way. What's the point? And I don't mean the point of some particular activity. I mean the point of the whole enterprise. The point of getting up, of continuing, of being here at all. When this happens, people often panic. They think they've become nihilistic, that they're having an existential crisis, that something has broken in their fundamental relationship with life. They go to therapists who talk about depression. They read self-help books about finding your purpose. They're told to make vision boards, to set new goals, to reconnect with their values. But none of it helps, because the problem isn't that they've lost their purpose. The problem is that they've seen through purpose itself, the architecture of meaning. But what if this collapse of meaning isn't a breakdown at all? What if it's a breakthrough? What if the dissolution of all your reasons for living is actually the beginning of really living for the first time? Let me explain what I'm getting at. You see, most of what we call meaning in life is actually borrowed. It's handed to us by culture, by family, by the accident of where and when we were born. You're told that education is important, so you pursue it. You're told that career success matters, so you chase it. You're told that love is the meaning of life, so you seek it. You're told that having children gives life purpose, so you have them. You're told that making a difference, leaving a legacy, contributing to society, these are what make a life worthwhile. And you believe all of this, not because you've examined it deeply and found it true, but because everyone around you believes it. And to question it would be to step outside the only world you know. So you adopt these meanings, the way you might adopt an accent from the place you grow up. It's not really yours, but you speak it so fluently that you forget you're speaking it at all. Now, these borrowed meanings work well enough for most people most of the time. They provide a framework, a sense of direction, a way of organizing your life into something that feels coherent. Get educated, build a career, find a partner, raise children, contribute to your community, retire with dignity. It's a perfectly serviceable narrative. Millions of people live their entire lives within this story, and die feeling that their lives meant something. But for some people, something happens. The framework starts to crack. Maybe it's a loss, a failure, a betrayal. Maybe it's just time and repetition wearing away at the story until you can see through it. And once you see through it, you can't unsee it. You start to notice that you're following a script you never wrote. You're pursuing goals you never chose. You're living a life that was designed by committee, by consensus, by everyone except you. The collapse of borrowed meaning. And here's where it gets interesting. Once you recognize that your meanings are borrowed, you try to find your own. You think, okay, those purposes weren't really mine, but surely I can find my own authentic purpose, my own real meaning. So you search, you experiment, you try different philosophies, different lifestyles, different ways of being. You read Nietzsche and try to create your own values. You read the existentialists and try to choose your own meaning. You read the Buddhists and try to find meaning in the present moment. You read the Stoics and try to find meaning in virtue. But here's what you discover. Every meaning you create is just as arbitrary as the meanings you were handed. You can choose to find meaning in art, but why art rather than science? You can choose to find meaning in helping others, but why helping others rather than pursuing your own excellence? You can choose any purpose you want, but the choosing itself reveals that the purpose has no ground. It's floating. It's invented. It's a story you're telling yourself to avoid the fundamental groundlessness of existence. And once you see this, Once you really understand that all meaning is constructed, that there's no cosmic purpose written into the fabric of reality, that we read just organisms on a rock, spinning through space making up stories to convince ourselves that our brief existence matters. Once you see this, meaning itself becomes impossible. It's not that you can't find meaning, it's that you can't believe in meaning anymore. You've seen behind the curtain. This is the state you're in, when nothing seems to mean anything anymore. And it's absolutely terrifying because humans are meaning-making creatures. We need our lives to be about something. We need to matter, to have significance, to be moving toward something. Without that, we feel utterly lost, like we're floating in an endless void with nothing to hold on to. The trap of seeking significance. But I want to suggest something radical to you. What if this void, this apparent absence of meaning, is not actually empty? What if you've been so busy filling your life with borrowed meanings and invented purposes that you've never noticed what's actually here when you're not trying to make your life mean something? Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're in a room and you're convinced there's a monster hiding somewhere under the bed, in the closet, behind the curtain. So you spend all your time fortifying yourself against this monster. You build elaborate defenses. You develop rituals to keep it at bay. You organize your entire life around the need to protect yourself from this threat. Now, what happens if one day you realize there is no monster? At first, you might feel relief. But then you might feel something stranger. Purposelessness, because your entire life has been organized around fighting this imaginary threat. Without the monster, what are you supposed to do? Your defenses become pointless. Your rituals become meaningless. You've structured your whole existence around something that doesn't exist. And now you have to face the question, what do I do with my life if I am not fighting the monster? This is what happens when you see through the need for meaning. The monster is the idea that your life must mean something, must be significant, must matter in some cosmic sense. And once you realize this is just a story, just a fear you've been running from, you're left with this strange question. What is life when it doesn't need to mean anything? And here's where most people make a mistake. They think the answer is nihilism, despair, resignation. They think, well, if nothing means anything, then nothing matters, so why bother? And they collapse into a kind of passive indifference. Or they swing the other way and become frantic, desperately trying to create meaning, to force significance, to make their lives matter through sheer force of will. But both of these responses miss what's actually available. Because when you stop trying to make your life mean something, when you give up the need for cosmic significance, when you abandon the search for purpose, something extraordinary becomes possible. You discover that life doesn't need meaning to be worth living. In fact, life is more vivid, more immediate, more real, when you're not filtering it through the lens of whether it means something. The sufficiency of simple existence. Think about a moment when you were completely absorbed in something, watching a sunset, listening to music, playing with a child, making love. In those moments, were you thinking about whether the experience was meaningful? Were you asking yourself if this served your purpose or contributed to your life's significance? No, you were simply there, fully present, and the experience was complete in itself. It didn't need to mean anything beyond what it was. This is what becomes available when meaning collapses. Not a life of grand significance, but a life of simple sufficiency. Things are just what they are. A cup of coffee is just a cup of coffee. A conversation is just a conversation. A day is just a day. And this isn't poverty, it's richness. Because when things don't need to mean something beyond themselves, they can be fully themselves. I knew a woman once who had devoted her life to a cause. She was an activist, fighting for justice, for change, for a better world. And she believed deeply that this was what gave her life meaning. Then, after years of this work, something shifted. She looked around and realized that the world wasn't getting better. The injustices she was fighting weren't diminishing. And she couldn't maintain the fiction anymore, that her efforts were building towards some meaningful future. This devastated her. She felt that her entire life had been wasted, that all her work had been for nothing. She fell into a profound depression. But then, gradually, something else emerged. She noticed that even though her work wasn't leading to some grand outcome, she still cared about the people she was helping, not because it was meaningful, but because they were right there in front of her, and they needed help. She told me that it was like a weight had been lifted. She no longer had to carry the burden of making the world better. She no longer had to justify her existence by proving that her life mattered. She could simply respond to what was in front of her, not because it meant something, but because it was what was here to be done. And paradoxically, her work became more effective, because she wasn't trying to force reality into some meaningful narrative. She could see things as they actually were and respond accordingly, living without why. This is what I'm pointing you toward. A life without why. Not a life of meaninglessness, but a life that doesn't require meaning to justify itself. You eat when you're hungry, not because eating is meaningful, but because hunger is here. You help someone who needs help, not because helping gives your life purpose, but because someone needs help and you can provide it. You create something, not because creation is your reason for living, but because the impulse to create arises and you follow it. This is what the Zen masters mean when they talk about chopping wood and carrying water. These aren't meaningful activities. They don't serve some grand purpose. They're just what needs to be done. And when you do them without needing them to mean something, they're complete. They're enough. You're enough. Now, I can hear your objection. You're thinking, but isn't this just giving up? Isn't this settling for a small, insignificant life? Where's the passion, the drive, the ambition? And I understand this objection, because we've been taught that passion and drive and ambition are what make life worth living. We've been taught that striving is noble, that reaching for something beyond ourselves is what makes us human. But consider this. What if all that striving is actually a form of violence against reality? What if your constant need to make life better, to achieve something, to become something, to mean something, what if all of that is just a sophisticated way of saying that what isn't enough? That you aren't enough? That this moment isn't sufficient? The striving isn't noble. It's exhausting. It's a perpetual war against what is. And you can't win this war, because reality is always exactly what it is. You can change your circumstances. Yes, you can improve your situation. But the fundamental fact remains. Life is just this breath, this moment, this body, this world. And no amount of striving will make it into something fundamentally different. The end of the search. When nothing means anything anymore, you're being invited to stop the war. Not to give up, but to recognize that there was never anything to fight for in the first place. Your life doesn't need to be justified. It doesn't need to be significant. It doesn't need to matter in some cosmic sense. It's already here. You're already alive. And that's not a problem requiring a solution. That's just what is. So what do you do when you can't find meaning in anything anymore? You stop looking. You stop trying to make your life mean something. You stop organizing your existence around purposes and goals and narratives. And you discover what's here when you're not trying to make here into somewhere else. You might discover that you're tired, so you rest. You might discover that you're hungry, so you eat. You might discover that someone needs help, so you help them. Not because these activities are meaningful, but because they're simply what's present. And gradually, you might notice something subtle. There's a kind of satisfaction in this. Not the satisfaction of achieving something meaningful, but the satisfaction of finally stopping the search. The satisfaction of coming home to the simple fact of being alive, without needing it to be more than it is. This isn't resignation. It's actually the opposite. It's complete engagement with life as it actually is, rather than life as you think it should be. It's responding to what's real, rather than chasing what's imagined. It's living from here, rather than always reaching for the meaning you've lost wasn't real anyway. It was just a story you were telling yourself to avoid the rawness of existence without narrative. Now the story has collapsed, and you left with just this. The bare fact of being alive in this particular moment, in this particular body, in this particular world. And here's the secret that nobody tells you. This is enough. It was always enough. You just couldn't see it because you were too busy trying to make it into something more. So, when nothing means anything anymore, don't try to rebuild meaning. Don't try to find a new purpose or create a new narrative. Just be here without meaning, without purpose, without narrative. Be here as the raw fact of existence that needs no justification, no significance, no cosmic importance. This is liberation. Not the liberation of achieving something great, but the liberation of no longer needing to achieve anything at all. The liberation of being exactly what you are, exactly where you are, without any need for it to be different. You haven't lost meaning. You've been freed from the tyranny of needing life to mean something. And that freedom, though it might feel like death at first, is actually the beginning of truly living.